Don Frye. You know, he comes up all the time there, especially in the month of November, because November, aka known as Movember, for beards, mustaches, any kind of facial hair, and you know, the standard question comes up to me: well, Dan, who has a better mustache, you or Don Frye? I go, well, without a doubt, it's Don Frye. He's younger, it's bigger, it's bolder. I said, I may not be the winner between mustaches, but at least I'm the originator.
What is your opinion of Don Frye, anyways? He's such a classic fighter.
Don Frye, as a wrestler, I was coaching at Arizona State at the time. Don Frye, I always saw him in his his pre-MMA career at closing time of a few different bars where he was just starting to morph some of his pugilistic skills and stuff like that. So I knew that Don would do just fine. So when I left Arizona State to take the job let's just say when I left Arizona State to take a job at Michigan State, again that was early on in my career, but that's probably the last time I really saw Don at that point. You know, his life went into, you know, he graduated, went to Oklahoma, and then went to into the fire department. But after he saw me in, like, I think UFC number 4, and then he started looking at that might be something he could do. And after UFC number 5, he definitely got in contact with me and said, "Can you help me get into this industry?" And I always say the only credit I will ever take is I helped him get his foot in the door. It's him that walks into the cage, and it's him that's got to make all these decisions. And you know, I could be there, I could be a training partner, I can hold hand mitts, I can do whatever that is, but it's still not walking in there and doing it for him. So I say I helped him get his foot in the door. He had the ability to simply kick that door wide open and just command the sport. I mean, Don has gone through a lot. I think he's died at least twice on the operation table, where they had to revive him. He's not the war dog he once was, obviously. Well, but then I'm not the same war dog I was either. He paid the price, and he paid the ultimate price of competition. A lot of people like to go back and go like on YouTube and see that one match with him and Takayama, where literally they reach out, they both have cradled each other's head with what's known as a collar tie, and simultaneously they're like smacking each other just like this for, I think, 45 seconds or longer. They're just punching like this. It's almost like a game of chicken. Are you gonna give? No, you son of a bitch, you're gonna give. And they're just going back and forth like this. They both paid a price for this match. The irony to this is they both survived this match. Takayama probably, I think, somewhere in the last, I'll say, 4 to 6 months, was involved in a professional wrestling match, because they both had professional wrestling careers beyond this point. Takayama was in a professional wrestling match, a routine maneuver that went wrong, and now Takayama is a quadriplegic for life.
I was stoked when I beat Don Frye, toughest guy I ever fought in my life. I would have had to kill him before he quit. And I couldn't believe what I was into. This was the third fight of the night. I hadn't been hit one time that I know of. I know my hands were killing me. And I got Don Frye down there at a 10-minute mark. And Big John asked him, "How you doing, Don?" He says, "I'm fine." Even though his eyes was closed shut, he opened up a little bit and said, "I'm fine." I said, "What have I got myself into here?" So I had to continue. They didn't stop fights back then. Don Frye was never going to tap.
Yeah.
And they did not stop fights, and he was still defending himself.
Yeah.
And I was exhausted. I was exhausted. But I got to finish this somehow. And finally his hands lowered enough that Big John pulled me off. And I still didn't know if I won, because I said, "Is it over?" And Big John looked at me and told me to go to my corner. I'm like, what the heck? And then finally I seen Big John doing the wave off sign. And I always give praise to the Lord. Thank you, buddy, because that was... But I was exhausted, and it was so hot in there. And I had a lot of my fans come swarm around me in the cage. They swarmed the cage, and the heat went from 110 or 100. It went from 100 up to 115, and literally I was going to pass out. And I looked at my coach and said, please, you know, and whew. But then when I did finally get my breath under control, wow, you know, I'm the fucking champ. How much cooler can it get than this? Well, it can get a lot cooler, but at that moment, what the heck? I've been dreaming of this since I was a 5-year-old kid.
And your rematch with Don Frye at Pride 26.
Don Frye, yeah.
Any thoughts on that one?
My rematch with Don Frye, Pride 26. Well, I tell you, Don Frye, UFC 10. Okay, you're talking about a young, hungry lion, killer, no quit in him, a farm guy, strong, wrestler, D1 wrestler. Okay, well, when I beat him that night, well, I feel his pain, but at the same time, if you look in hindsight, I weighed 235 pounds. He weighed 215, 220, and I was an Olympic caliber wrestler. Sorry, the odds should, if they had odds at Vegas and anybody knew what they were doing, there ain't no reason in hell why I shouldn't beat Don Frye's ass. I'm bigger, stronger, better wrestler, and he's going to be on his back, and he's not going to submit me. Well, that's the way it went, but it went that way, and it was headbutt, it was elbow, it was punches, it was knees, it was everything I could give this guy, but he was just not going to quit. You would never see a fight like this now. You'll never see a fight like me and Don Frye again, because they would have stopped the damn fight earlier, which I wish they did, because well, it's a classic for sure, but at the same time, Don Frye, he hated me after this fight. He went home and he hated Mark Coleman, and he watched this fight every day, and it took years off his life. And I would see Don Frye over the next couple years. I would see him at smaller shows, look over, and I would give him a wave, and you know, he would reluctantly maybe give a wave back. But then it took about 3 years, 4 years before he finally came up, and Don Frye stepped up and said, hey man, he says, I can't hate you. He says, we're too much alike. And it was so cool. I sat there and said, yeah, Don, come on, brother. He said, but hey, I still want that rematch. I said, no problem, but same thing's going to happen. And then me and Don Frye became best friends. We ended up doing the rematch in Pride, and honestly, he was going through all kinds of back injuries, you know what I mean? But he had gained 20 pounds. He was up 235. We were same weight now.
Yeah.
And when we initially locked up, he felt like the strongest man in the world. And I said, oh, shit. But thankfully, it's not just about strength. It's about the gas tank. How long can you maintain that strength? And fortunately for me, I wasn't in my best shape. It wasn't one of my better nights of my life. I had injuries and stuff I was dealing with, but fortunately for me, I had a little better gas tank than him. And, you know, same thing happened minus the headbutts, you know, so it wasn't as vicious, it wasn't as violent, but I got to win. And then after the after fight party, Don Frye came up to me and he said we looked like a couple old men out there is what I heard. And I said, well, I don't know, I guess so. He goes, man, we got to do it again. Don Frye wanted the third fight right after the second one. That's Don Frye, man.
I did an interview with Don Frye a couple of days ago, and he seemed a little angry at you over something. Do you have any idea what that heat could be about?
No, did he expand on it at all?
When I asked him to expand, he drank out of a horse trough, spit the water out.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so the only other thing that Don Frye and I have had, close quarters on was when Brock Lesnar.
Oh yes, he mentioned that. Now that
When
you
Brock
bring it up.
came out of basically Brock was trying to make the Minnesota Vikings, and he made it down to the last cuts, and I had crossed paths with Brock years and years earlier, and I said to him, just in passing, I said, hey dude, if you ever decide you're going to get into fighting, just look me up. I'll be pretty easy to find. And Brock came down to Arizona. He actually went down and saw Don Frye first. I got contacted by Brock's lawyer and says, hey, Brock wants to get a hold of you. I had a conversation with Brock. He said, here's what I'm going to do. And he came down here. He had Don Frye evaluate him, and he had me evaluate him. And then they kind of figured out between us two which person he wanted to come up and help him establish a camp and a training routine in Minnesota. And so if Don's jealous because he picked me over him, that's like, it's almost like a date, it's like a chick picking one dude over another. But it wasn't, literally, he was like, dude, Brock was saying that it's difficult because both of you guys have different qualities in different areas where you specialize in. And I think for Brock, he identified more with me because of my wrestling background and Brock's wrestling background, collegiate wrestling background. And so I went up to Minnesota for a month, and Brock and I actually ended up not on good terms. At the time I was probably not on my best behavior, and had showed up to Brock's morning workout at 6 in the morning, and I hadn't been to bed from the night before, and and Brock was so far beyond that. That was something that he was doing years before that. At his house, at his place in Minnesota with his wife, his kids, that was no place to bring that kind of shit. And I brought it to his doorstep, and we had a conversation, and he decided it would be in my best interest and his best interest if we just part ways. And that was, I was up there for about a month, and he had set up just an incredible facility. He had gotten a boxing coach, he had gotten, training partners and everything, and that was when he was getting ready for the UFC. So, if anything, I owe him an apology.
And Don Frye brought up that he didn't necessarily believe that you were afraid to fight because you've said in the past that you had a fear of fighting. So.
I haven't hung out with Don Frye enough for him to clarify my own thoughts, right? And I don't want to start a beef with Don. He's a good dude, but so genuinely, and this is the absolute truth.
Yeah.
Like before my first professional fight, I had been in 2 fights. 2, and I literally, one where it was like 5-on-1 of my college roommate my senior year.
Yeah.
And the other one was when we got in like a wrestler defend your wrestling teammate brawl, and I punched the dude in the mouth. Other than that, I was a spectator. It was like I'd make sure that like if you had a bunch of dudes fighting, I'd make sure that like 4 dudes didn't jump on one guy. I would step in and just start sorting things out, not fighting, right?
Yeah.
So like legitimately, when I get in the ring for the first time, I don't have like Mark Coleman's been in a shit ton of street fights.
Right.
Kevin Randleman, he was in a bunch of street fights, a bunch of bar brawls, right? I wasn't the dude jumping in bar brawls. I was like, as big as I was at the time, I was like, you know what? If I get in a bar fight, you know what they're going to do? Go to their car, get a gun, come in and shoot me.
Do you think Don Frye got his voice from drinking out of the horse water?
Oh, probably. The Brokeback Cowboy. I could see that. I hope he's doing good. I hope that show, that toxic masculinity, they could get like that swimmer that that's competing like a woman. They could get that guy on and they or her, whatever she is, to interview her. A toxic masculinity, doesn't that fit? Hey, I should be a booker for your show. Come on.
Would you appear on their show if they had you on? I'm sure the fans would love to see that.
Oh, I don't think they'd know what to do. Brokeback might get out of the chair and attack me, and then Dudley Do-Right will be over there shaking his head back and forth with his arms crossed, going, "Well, that doesn't make sense there. I hope those boys don't do that." Oh, Lord.
Ryan wants to know if you think Don Frye was on the juice. I can pretty much guess your answer.
I don't know, but look at that face.
You end that guy's career, the Japanese guy. What's his name?
Takayama?
Yeah, Takayama. Now that fight had to be your most famous fight of all time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now that was to me one of the most. I mean, if you look at any fight, any time of two men against men at that time, there's a round in there that's got to be one of the most famous rounds in all of competitive fighting. That was remarkable. And like I really felt like when you were just did the hit and you're lowering your hand a little bit, lowering your head so like to receive the less damage, but it was still like it was toe to toe to toe. I mean, and the audience just losing their minds.
Yeah.
And it was just like you show that to people. And you couldn't write something like that. If you wrote that in a script in Rocky 12, that one you don't believe. And you see it, and it's still just as remarkable. At the end of that fight, I mean, I really don't think that there's certain fights that end careers. That must have I know he fought after that.
Yeah.
Rob, I'm not here to kiss his ass, but anyone that's been hit by this man would definitely respect Takayama for the amount of punishment that guy had took.
Yeah,
it was incredible.
It reminded me of like that Roberto Duran was fighting the handsome guy back, and he said, and the fighter said at the end, "Not handsome anymore." But no, there was just a level of of brutality that happened. It was unleashed. That was by the end of that fight. I mean, I feel like I don't think he could fight after that.
No, if you want to watch something really strange, watch the audience. Ignore the two fighters and watch the audience. And some of them, it's just like, wow, the way they react.
Yeah, well, they were stunned by it. It was one thing between a good fight and also like it was like the intensity and the barrage and the number of punches and the number of just toe-to-toe punches. It's just like, it was a guy in box, it's just the guys who are lined up against each other, just wailing on each other. But I'd never seen, and I've seen the guys in the clinch who would come up and give a punch, and then the other guy would come up and give a punch. But it was hit, and it was just...
that wasn't a dramatization.
It was actually gripping at two really good athletes.
Yeah.
At the prime of life, and that was like, you weren't going to have that kind of intensity. It was like, who is going to fall down first? And I just knew it wasn't going to be you, but at the same time, it was like it was just coming in with those American flag tighty whities of yours, at the briefs, and then going up against this Japanese superhero.
Yeah.
It just like the Japanese King Kong was just one of those things that, again, it doesn't happen. It's like one of those things. It's like that Roberto Duran first fight, Sugar Ray Leonard, when they were going toe to toe, and like, okay, this is what we paid for.
Your last fight on that first pay-per-view was against Don Frye.
Yeah.
What are your memories of that fight and your continuous matches with him? Because I think you had 3 altogether.
Yeah. The first match, I fought Don Frye. Like my first night after Paul Herrera, I went to Jerry Bolander, and Jerry Bolander was from the Lions Den. He was able to get me tired. I didn't even know he had enough cardio for this damn thing. I thought it was just you go out there and fight. I had no idea whatsoever you need cardio. So I fought Jerry Bolander, and the match lasted 5 minutes. By the time I got back, my corner had to pick me up and drag me out to the back, and I'm like sucking wind in this black gi, So they took off the gi so I can breathe, and they're fanning me and doing all this and to get me some air. And then I got, so what do you have? And look on the thing. Then they heard Don Frye just knocked out the zombie from a 410-pound zombie. It was the David against Goliath. And Don Frye was the smallest the biggest David. I was the smallest Goliath. So we meet in the end to each other. I beat up all my guys, and he beat up all his, and we met in the end together. His 2 matches were like seconds. My 2 were, Jared Bowlander took me 5 minutes, but first one was a couple seconds. Finally, we're going up against each other. And here's the thing: in the back of in the hall, it was like in a hockey arena. And beside this arena, everybody is set out long. Don Frye.
So there's no individual dressing rooms?
No, there's no one. There's one, but the thing is that it's the only thing that separates the dressing room is a sheet. So you can hear everything that's going on. Don Frye's right beside my corner. So when I came back in the room, everybody dragged me back. Came back to my room. I can't fight. I can't fight. Then people understood that he's back beside me. You're fighting him next. You're fighting him next. So be quiet. Be quiet. Shh. I'm like, oh man, guys, I can't. I'm telling you, man, I can't fight. I can't. Shh. And then, so then I had another guy, and the guys in the back there, they started hitting the pads like if I was warming up. Somebody started hitting the pads, so the sounds he would hear it like I'm warming up and hitting it fast, and going on. And so then I got out of there, and then when they dragged me out, I said, I have about 30 seconds of gas, and after that, you guys got to pull the cord and throw in the towel. So I got in there, and we started fighting, and I started feeling good as I started walk out. Started feeling good, started fighting, feeling really good, and then finally we fought, and I think we went 5 minutes. It was awesome. Loved it.
And your second fight, I guess, was in Pride?
The second fight, was in Ultimate 96.
Okay.
That's the one that Don Frye beat everybody, and he won. What happened was same thing happened again. I ran out of cardio, and he ended up beating me again. And then we fought again in the last time I was in Pride. I was leaving Pride, and after that I obviously went over to K1. But I was leaving Pride, and I started starting fighting different ways. Learning how to kick. I stretch, and neither of us worked out for the fight at all. He looked at me, and I looked at him. We're just, every time I see him, he's like this, and he's sore, and I can see him like he was sore. So was I. I didn't train a second for that fight. They offered me the fight. I took the fight. I didn't train one bit for that fight. So if I didn't knock him out, we look terrible. We look like 2 old men trying to fight each other. That's what we look like. And then finally we ended up fighting, and I saw his hands were low, and I'm gonna try for a head kick. And I went for a head kick and got him, knocked him out. I went to Brazil with Don Frye, and that's when I really got to know him. With Don Frye and Coleman and myself, we went to Brazil, and we did a bunch of things over there, helping out the Brazilians and moving there in Balitudo. And I really got to know Don Frye there, and then we fought in Pride, and we fought all around, and, so we're always very close. We started the very same day, and then he went off to professional wrestling. But we always had a good camaraderie. I have his phone number. I can call him right now. He's a good man, but he's bullheaded. He's just, if he has something in his mind, that's in his mind. And him and his wife were going through problems. I won't tell you what the problems are, but they were going through problems and started separating, going their own way, and it's bothering him, it's bothering her, and they called and kind of put me in the middle, and I wish him the best. He's had a rough time. He's having a rough time. He's had a rough life. He's had a rough go of life because he's been beaten up and beaten down. Like I said, professional wrestling. He's got a wrecked up back. He's got this. He's got that.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.